Alien Covenant commits the worst sin of any movie. I'm talking the real first sin here, before anything else a movie can do. It's boring. I found myself checking the time on my phone through the first half of the movie, internally sighing, there's still that long left? The last third of the movie suddenly gives us a storyline that we should have been following since the beginning, but that's hardly a redeeming feature. If you want a spoiler-free review, that's it right there. But if you haven't seen the film and don't want anything spoiled for you, stop watching now. I'll run down the plot as quickly as I can. Alien Covenant tells the story of the first attempt for humans to colonise another planet with a ship full of colonists in cryosleep and a skeleton crew ready to wake up and begin the mission, or to man the ship in case of an emergency. And an emergency happens right away, forcing the crew to be woken up. Except for the captain, who seems to spontaneously burn to death in his cryotube in a really bizarre scene that's never explained or even referenced again. Maybe there's a deleted scene where the crew tell him it's a bad idea to bring all those barbecue fire starters into the tube with him. The problems of the film start right away, because from the very beginning, the movie gives us no reason to care about the characters. Supposedly, our main character is the wife of the captain who's been immolated by his cold freezing tube? After watching her husband die, it's only brought up emotionally once, in a scene that follows very shortly after, where she's given a pat on the back and that's about it. If you'd cut the entire opening for time, you'd never have noticed that her character was missing any backstory. I'm not sure of her name because I didn't catch it from the movie, and even looking on the film's Wikipedia page in preparation for this video, it's not especially clear which names link up with the characters in the plot description. Which brings me to why I say that she's supposedly our main character. All of the characters are pulling equal duty as the main character, and I think that contributes to not really feeling that attached to any of them in particular. I know what some of you are thinking, and don't worry, I'll come back to this idea a bit later on. After everyone wakes up and a different crew member assumes command, the ship decides to land on a closer planet than the one that they were travelling to, because it's even more habitable according to their scans, and I feel silly even saying this, the people planning the mission just didn't notice it, despite having scanned the entire sector. Now, if the movie hadn't drawn attention to this, I probably would have just gone with it, and not even mentioned it here, but the film goes out of its way to specifically mention it once, and then never again. Now, I know I'm harping on a few lines of dialogue in the context of an entire movie, but so close to the beginning of the film, it's about the third or fourth distractingly implausible thing, and those bank up and really start to take you out of the film. So, they land, and 10 seconds later, half of them are infected by airborne spores that make smooth white CGI xenomorphs the size of spider monkeys burst out of their backs. Again, I'll come back to this scene and its effects a bit later, when I talk about Covenant in the context of the Alien film franchise. The survivors meet up with David, the android from Prometheus, who takes them back to a space jockey city, who he's long since wiped out with the black goop from the previous film. It turns out that David is evil, and has been genetically engineering the aliens from the original movie, Alien. Now, hold up. What I've been describing doesn't sound boring, but I've taken a few minutes to get through this. We're up to the film's 3/4 mark. Everything is padded out with awkward philosophical conversations, trying to state the film's themes, rather than let the themes unfold through the story. The cold open of the film is one of these. A really out-of-place scene where the android David talks to Guy Pearce's Wayland, who designed him. They even have the statue of David there, so David can explain that that's his namesake. Oh, it's such a cringy moment. The scene only exists to set up the bookends for the movie, with the Wagner piece that David plays on piano being played over his final evil machinations before the credits roll. Incidentally, as a big fan of Wagner's music, allow me to say that yes, we get it, Hitler liked Wagner's music. Now can we please stop using that implicit connection to make movie villains seem more sinister? I've seen the whole bad guy listens to classical music trope so many times now, I just can't take it seriously anymore. The last third of the movie has David fighting and defeating Walter, the ship's own android, also played by Michael Fassbender, who's doing a really weird accent. I cannot quite pin down what accent it's meant to be, but I think it's meant to be American. It is very distracting throughout the film. He reveals his newly created alien eggs to a crew member in a scene that I actually think is good. He's a character that doesn't know anything about the eggs, just like John Hurt in the original Alien, except that this guy has David, someone who he trusts, telling him that they're harmless and inviting him to go have a look inside. Now the audience knows exactly what's going to happen, and it's a really clever way to twist the original scene around. It uses our assumed knowledge in its favour, instead of struggling against it to recreate the original surprise. But then the alien emerges from the guy about 10 seconds later, and I'm not exaggerating here, it's actually about 10 seconds later, and we get one of the silliest visuals in the whole film. It comes out, made of really obvious CGI, and unfolds its limbs to start mimicking David's hand gestures, like the world's bloodiest dancing baby Groot. I genuinely can't fathom what director Ridley Scott was thinking with this one. After that point, it's like the movie realised it was meant to be an alien film, and it almost becomes a weird B-movie grade remake of the original. It just runs down a checklist of things that have to happen in every Alien movie. Seal off the doors, run around with alarms blaring, blow it out the airlock, but with much less effective cinematography and a totally unnecessary shower scene kill. Yeah, 'cause that's what the original Alien was missing. Tits. After killing the alien, the two survivors get back into cryosleep and finally realise the twist. The android that they thought was actually Walter was David the entire time, and he locks them in, presumably to die, as he blares Wagner through the ship's speakers and starts setting up aliens to take advantage of all the sleeping colonists. The twist was so obvious that I actually didn't think it was meant to be a twist until the reveal moment, where I was like,
was it supposed to be a secret?
And finally, after 30 minutes worth of story stretched over 2 hours, the movie's done. Prometheus was a bad movie, but it was at least a really interesting and rewatchable one. Alien Covenant is just dull, but oddly enough, Prometheus had less interesting thematic concepts than Alien Covenant, despite being a more entertainingly made movie. Covenant actually has a potentially interesting idea lost in its core. Now, I don't know why Ridley Scott suddenly decided that the Alien movies should be about the search for humanity's creators, but hey, I can roll with a thematic departure if it makes an interesting movie. Aliens, as in second movies, genre shift from slasher horror to war action was a huge change, and a great one, and the best parts of Alien 3 are the parts that are left over from when it wasn't even intended to be an Alien movie. Alien Covenant gives us an explanation for where the xenomorphs come from, and while it's not a question I'd ever really wanted answered, it's not at midichlorians level of unasked question answering. To try and find our own creator, humanity decides to create androids, who in turn create the alien, which eventually humanity will discover and be destroyed by. There's potential in there, and in a better movie, it could have been a really interesting addition to the franchise. As I've mentioned, the movie goes out of its way to beat you over the head with philosophical and religious allusions. Besides the dialogue, the most cringe-inducing part is a crucified alien embryo on David's workbench. You know, because he sees his alien creations as the reckoning of mankind. Get it? The movie will make sure that you do! To be fair, there's one moment of subtlety in the film, and I genuinely like it. David and Walter have a conversation about whether androids can love someone, with David pointing out that Walter willingly sacrificed his arm to save one of the main characters. And that certainly seems like an action driven by love for her. Much later in the film, to maintain his deception, David has to cut off his own arm, off-screen of course, so that he can continue fostering the aliens that he's created. In any other movie, that type of thematic detail wouldn't really be anything to write home about, but here, it's one of the highlights. As a work in its own right, Alien Covenant has great prop, set and costume design. I really dig Danny McBride's swivel-jointed spacesuit. But as a prequel to Alien, it just heightens my issues with Prometheus. Everything here is super high-def 4K flat screens and 3D hologram displays, whereas in Alien, set in this film's future, it's the mid-70s. Tiny one-colour CRT displays and occasional 2D vector graphics. What happened in the interim?
Did IQs just drop sharply while I was away?
The film visually apes things like the overhead bars on the dropship from Aliens, or the presence of those little spinning toys to make sure that gravity's functional on the ships, but it doesn't stay faithful to the elements that it should be paying attention to. One of the things that made the video game Alien Isolation notable was how much it felt like it could fit into the world of the original film, because of the development team's dedication to creating in-universe technology that could, conceivably, have been made by a film crew in the late 70s. There were so many ways to be visually creative with an Alien prequel, such as making it look like a spacefaring future built on 60s technology rather than 70s. But no, instead we just get a generic vision of the future based on making the technology of 2017 look more sci-fi. And for a prequel, it doesn't gel. The other thing that really doesn't gel is how the alien contaminant spreads in the film. Not only is the first inciting incident the newly minted captain changing the entire mission's target planet on a whim, but once they set down on this completely unknown and untested planet, they just walk around with absolutely no quarantine protocols. They just wander about and breathe in God knows what, because what's the worst that could happen? Other than, turning into an incubator for an alien monster. Considering how huge of a plot point Ash-breaking quarantine protocols was in the original Alien, where, ironically, it didn't matter, it really highlights how stupidly every character consistently acts in this film. This is also where I wanted to come back to the 2 points that I shelved earlier. First of all, the main character in the cast being unclear. The first Alien also kept the main character unclear for as long as it could. Ripley, of course, eventually emerges as the protagonist towards the end of the film, and there it works. The film built up each of the main cast equally, so that when people started dying, we had no idea who'd be next. There was a reason for doing it. In Alien Covenant, it's done just because, hey, it's what they did in Alien, I guess. But none of the characters are well developed, and the film mistakes being in a relationship as a reason for the audience to automatically connect with and care about characters. Again, in Aliens, James Cameron got us to like an entire cadre of space marines as individuals in just a few short scenes. It can be done, but Covenant makes only the laziest of attempts to do so, as it's far more concerned with its high school level philosophical ponderings. Second of all, and perhaps most importantly, are the visual effects. Remember how Jurassic World's CGI couldn't hold a candle to the then 20-year-old effects of Jurassic Park? Well, while the space scenes in Alien Covenant are suitably impressive, I want to call attention to those as a good use of CGI. The actual aliens in the film look terrible. Let's compare 2 similar scenes. The spider-monkey white aliens ruin the medical bay scene in Alien Covenant by sticking out as noticeably not really there, as does the baby Groot alien emerging from the crew member's chest. Let's compare those scenes to the chestburster scene in the original Alien. The practical effect of the original chestburster is not good. It's a hokey-looking special effect. It looks bad. But the important thing is that the scene carried it. When audiences watched the original Alien, nobody was sitting there going, "Aw, that puppet looks really fake running across the table," because they were too busy being surprised and horrified. In Aliens, when the spacehuggers are skittering across the floor towards Ripley and Newt, there was real weight to it. They looked tangible, because they actually were. There's no reason that these effects in Alien Covenant couldn't have been practical, and they would have looked so much better for it. Now, of course, CGI does have its place. Just look at Gollum in The Lord of the Rings, or the tiger in Life of Pi. But it's a matter of choosing the right tool for each job. Ridley Scott can still make great films. He proved that with The Martian, though in fairness he did have excellent source material to work from. I don't think he's a filmmaker who's past his prime, and he's clearly not half-arsing his work on these new Alien prequels. But with another 3 already planned to take place between Covenant and the original Alien, I think he's spreading the ideas too thin. I'd much rather have 1 really good prequel than 1 bad one and 1 boring one, with 3 more in the pipeline.